Hey guys, today's video is going to be something a little different. Today I wanted to cover the topic of anxiety in college. I believe it's something that's actually pretty widespread amongst a lot of students, but it's something that a lot of us students actually don't acknowledge as well. And especially so as we reach the midway point of the semester during midterms, I know that a lot of students are starting to feel the pressure. Okay, so just to put a definition out there, anxiety is a feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease about something with an uncertain outcome. And it's actually a pretty normal emotion. But when it starts to become a recurring thing in your life that it starts to affect your lifestyle, then you might have a bit of anxiety disorder. And people with anxiety disorders frequently have intense, excessive, and persistent worry and fear about everyday situations. In some cases, you might have strong, repeated episodes of intense anxiety that may last up to a few minutes, and I think this is called anxiety attack. It's something I wanted to cover because it's something I personally have felt towards the end of 2020 as well as the start of this year. And I also know that a lot of students are probably suffering from this as well. It's just that the way that we are like in Singapore, I think a lot of us just brush it aside and beat ourselves up for feeling this way. In a twisted way, I think a lot of us feel like we don't have the right to think or feel this way. Being anxious and everything, because other students are going through the same thing that we are and they seem to be fine. But that's not the truth. You deserve to feel whatever you're feeling. It is something that I've come to terms with at the start of the year, to not ignore that anxiety that might be boiling up in you. And if you keep all of it in, you might just explode one day. And trust me, it's not pretty when everything explodes and all the emotions start to come to the fore. And so today I've gathered a bunch of college students to share their experiences with anxiety, in the hope that a lot of students like you guys may feel like you're not alone. And I'll also be sharing my own experience with this, and this is going to be the most vulnerable you'll see me in a video in quite a while. Okay, let's get to it. I'm supposed to be the most comfortable on camera here, I believe, so My name's Daryl. As you guys should know, I study computer science in NUS, the National University of Singapore.
Hello, I'm Sasha. I'm in my final year at the NUS School of Business.
I'm Edson and I study Mass Comm at NTU.
My name is Grant. I study computer science and I study in my room and sometimes at cafes around Singapore. Okay, no kidding. I study at NUS as well. Yep.
My name is Caroline. I study civil engineering in NUS.
I believe it's down to a lot of overwhelm, uncertainty about the future. In year 2 summer, I didn't get an internship, I kept comparing myself to others. People were already doing better than me in school. I was lagging behind them already, and they were all getting their internships, and I didn't have an internship. And that caused a lot of worry on my part because it felt like I was lagging behind everyone. Going back to the point about overwhelm, I believe it happened sometime around the last semester. Actually, just a little bit after I started uploading regularly on YouTube. At that point of time, I was trying to handle too many things, way too many things at once. I had to find an internship for my credit-bearing internship. I had to study in the midst of starting my YouTube channel, and I actually had a relationship as well at that point of time. But it came to a breaking point the week before recess week, where everything, was just so many things to handle, and it felt like my life was just spiraling out of control. And that's one thing that really causes me a lot of stress, not being certain of what's going to happen. That's what really causes my anxiety, overwhelm and uncertainty of the future.
I would put it as like social anxiety, and that kind of stems from the fact that I think that I have this tendency to always compare myself with other people around me. It's like you just make the comparison in your head, and then because of that comparison, you start thinking whether you're missing out on certain things. And a lot of this came about when I was staying in school. I think anyone who goes to hall can attest to the fact that there's a lot of socializing going on, right? And then I guess some part of you will feel like that you should also socialize. Over time, you kind of realize that you're going a bit more than what your mind can take, I guess.
NUS is one of the top schools in the world, and so you're surrounded with top scholars. Naturally, you would feel the pressure to try to stand out. And of course, that's more difficult with a high-performing crowd, and that's what NUS is. And so I think that's where most of the anxiety stems from.
Wow, okay, so what causes it? It's, in school, validation is like a very big thing for me because I guess like I'm an only child, and I guess my upbringing is like very lonely in a sense. So when I come to school, it's kind of like, I have to do stuff that make people like, see me as something that is agreeable lah. And sometimes that causes a lot of anxiety. Like when I come out from a lesson, right, there's a lot of benches for people to study. Sometimes, you feel very alone because like you see other people with their friends studying together. But then for me, sometimes the lesson ends and your friends have different lessons than you. You have to walk past the benches like a walk of shame or something. So I think that's an anxiety that I frequently experience in school. Yeah.
I feel like at first it was because, I'm an international student, right? So when I first came, I needed a lot of time to adjust to the life being a university student. And I also came when I was just 17. The adjustment period was perhaps a bit too much for me. It really developed a lot of anxiety because I felt like Singapore is a very competitive environment, and I just felt like I had to keep catching up with everyone else, and that was really hard.
I get really jittery, and then my fingers just like that. And sometimes when I walk past the benches and then I see other people, talking and having fun, I would just get very jittery because it's like, shit, where's mine? And then I wouldn't run away, but I would just walk very quickly and I would just take a long cut just to get to where I have to go. Yeah. And I guess that's what I will physically do.
It's like a palpable, visceral feeling. My lungs will start to constrict. That sounds very dramatic, but yeah, it makes it hard to speak your own mind because you're so focused on what other people are thinking of you. You tend to focus on the negatives with that confirmation bias phenomena. You focus on the negatives, you kind of exclude the positive reality that's probably ongoing, and the negatives become your reality, and it's hard to break out of that.
The biggest catalyst in that of feeling lonely is Instagram. I'll be honest, Instagram has not been the best thing for someone with social anxiety in the sense that you see a lot of what people have a tendency to share a lot of social moments on the stories. Friends hanging out, doing things, they look like they're having fun, right? And then in that moment when you're needing that social connection, it just feels like you don't have that because in comparison to them, you are lesser. That's how it feels.
Sometimes when I get very overwhelmed, right? Is it called anxiety attacks? So I'm also someone who's very emotional, so I cry very easily. Then sometimes I may get it's hard to breathe. Then I just need to sit down because I'm scared if I was standing I would just fall over. It's just a very immense feel of sadness and stress that I just don't know how to. It's I forget how to exist, Yeah.
Okay, so what I feel in the moment mentally, it feels like your vision is very narrowed. All you can think of is what is happening right now to you, all the worries that you have right now. Yeah, that's the only thing that you can see, just all these things that could potentially go wrong. You start to have very illogical thoughts. I would say that your thoughts start to get very cloudy. You can't really formulate your thoughts very well. And especially with this sense of overwhelm, the only thing you can really think about is how your life is spiraling out of control, and how you think of how you struggle to grasp back that control, but you still don't really know how to. And then you either default into this state of just not being able to do anything. You just feel like you're kind of drowning, I would say, especially in this state of overwhelm. Just kind of helpless, basically. Yeah.
I had gone through a breakup, and over that relationship, socially I was only interacting with this one person and neglecting all other social interactions. And so for that period of time, that was my social circle and my reality. And so when that fizzled out, I was having to build a new world for myself. And so I found it difficult even interacting with my friends and family. It got so bad to the point where I couldn't even form proper sentences because I was thinking about the sentence in my head before actually being able to verbalize it. So I sought help, professional and in other institutions.
So worst would have been, I guess, okay, actually I do remember one occasion now where I was paired with let's say romance problems, okay? For a few weeks, I guess, I just spent lying down in bed and staring at the ceiling and doing nothing. Doing nothing as like because I couldn't do anything, not because I didn't want to do anything. I mean, I didn't want to do anything and I couldn't do anything. So all I did was just lie in bed, stare at the ceiling, and just have thoughts run through my head. And it's the same thoughts, right? It's the same thing going over and over again. But every time it goes over, it kind of like times 5 in power. You know what I mean? They're just like the intensity just goes more and more until I fall asleep. And the next morning I wake up and then I feel better when I wake up in the morning. When I go through the day, at some point in time, all of that repeats itself again and over again over a few days. That was probably the worst time. I think it was like a few years ago, somewhere in the middle of my university days.
Before the recess week of the last semester, it was a time where just everything started to boil up, like, internship, studies, relationship, and YouTube. You guys need to understand that I'm not someone that actually really opens up to people a lot. So when you hold all of those worries in and you have no outlet for it, eventually it will come out no matter how much you try to shove it to the back. And it's actually one flaw I would say I had, which kind of resulted in the relationship not working out, not being able to open up about things that I was feeling.
Now that I'm in year 4, wow, it's crazy. Because when you look at the benches, it's like you literally know nobody because like you are the senior. And then at the benches, it's like year 1 or year 2s and you don't really like know them. So I just avoided like going to benches altogether if I don't see a point or if I want to get something from the library. Getting better now, I still do have these thoughts from time to time.
It wasn't because of school. So I had my ex. My ex is from Indonesia. Like, he's back in Indonesia. And I think the worst that I've had so far was when I had to break up with him. So what happened was I knew that I wasn't the type of person who can do long distance. So it was like really eating into me, like feeling hopeless. Because, in long distance, I just felt like I didn't have anyone to lean on physically in Singapore. And maybe I was weak, but it just feels I'm not even in a relationship. And that feeling grew even more. And after a while, my friend made me realize that instead of feeling happy in the relationship, I was more sad than happy. So eventually, I decided to break up with him. And I knew if I did it in my own room, it wasn't going to be a good thing. So I tried to take a walk around the block and calm myself down. But turns out it didn't really help as much. Because eventually when I broke up with him, I just I broke down. I just cried really hard to the point that everyone was just looking at me. Because I was just walking around the block. And then people started staring at me. And then I was just crying. And there's this huge wave of pain and sadness, and I couldn't even continue walking. I just had to sit down, crouch, and try to breathe, to the point that someone actually came towards me and said, "Hey, are you okay?" And I was like, "Oh, it's okay." Honestly, I couldn't even remember what happened afterwards, because it feels like my memory is just trying to block out all the pain. Mostly it's just a lot of crying and not knowing how to breathe.
I would say in the past, I never actually told my friends about it. Besides, posting a few Insta stories on close friends list or whatnot. They might be aware of it, but I don't think any of them really knew the severity of the situation. I think a lot of people saw me as someone that would be able to handle my feelings and emotions on my own. And to an extent, that was pretty true. But my coping mechanism isn't as great as you might think.
When I have these bouts of anxiety, I don't talk to my friends, because it's kind of shit, if I say I have anxiety, what does that make me as a person? You know what I mean? It's so irrational. So a lot of times I keep things to myself. And please don't keep things to yourself, because it will build up and ultimately you'll do a lot of stupid shit. So eventually I opened up, and recently when I had these bouts of social anxiety again, I will always tell my friends about it, and they will just say it's okay. And honestly, when you share this with your friends, you'll come to realize actually really nobody cares. You know what I mean? Everything is all in your head. You really just gotta get it out and understand that everybody probably has their own sense of loneliness themselves. If you really want to connect, you can connect anytime, anywhere.
There's only a very small select group of people I share those moments of loneliness with. I try to be as honest and upfront with them as possible. That's usually better over text. For some reason, being able to curate your expression with as much time as you want over text is a lot easier than in person. And that's okay. And I would try to be as honest as possible, not fearing judgment, because these are long-term friends, and you don't really want to be wasting your time on people who judge you for feeling human emotions?
Sometimes I do, but I think like most of the time I don't. It might not be such a good coping mechanism, but I feel like if I talk to my friends, I would have to like acknowledge the feeling, And I feel like if I just don't think about it or just don't talk about it, like I could just like push it down and it will like disappear. Yeah, and I find that when I actually talk to my friends, like, it's not that they don't care about me, but sometimes they just cannot relate. I don't necessarily feel better when I talk to them. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But most of the time I will just like end up crying and they will just end up not knowing what to say. And then I will just end up feeling bad because I took up a lot of their time. Yeah, I don't really talk to my friends that much about it unless they're like the people who are like super, super close to me.
Even though I'm staying with my family now, right, under the same roof, I didn't really make that very known to them. I don't really share that with them in the first place. I'll talk about family first because in the past few years, for example, the people that I've seen the most is mostly family. I didn't really share that with them, but with friends, I felt like they had some understanding of how vulnerable my mentality can be. And so I did share with them. I guess the responses sometimes aren't, it's alright, in time you'll heal, and the kind of things, right? But let's be honest here, words are words for a lot of people. And in my own experiences and my own communications with other people with anxiety or depression, these words get overwritten very easily by their own. So your words of comfort, they do get across to them, but in the other 98% of the brain, it's their own thoughts of anxiety and their own, sometimes illogical, but very emotional thoughts, clouding out everything that is saying that is of comfort to them. And that is one struggle, right? I do have to say that even I had to face, if let's say I was talking to someone with anxiety or depression.
Honestly, I probably just sleep through it. Yeah, I don't really like. I'm trying. So like actually, I tried to book like a slot with the university counselling services, but that time when I tried to book them, the waiting time was 3 months. Then I was like, no, I don't want to wait 3 months. Recently, I managed to book a slot. I think it's like in 2 weeks. So I'm trying to find the better way to like deal with my anxiety. I like to paint a lot, so I try to find time to paint and just like, cause it's very calming and it really helps me calm down. So maybe that's like the best coping mechanism. But sometimes I also just like eat a lot. Yeah, cause food makes me happy. So whenever like I feel stressed, then I just eat. Then I forget that I'm sad. But then I will remember again, and then I will just eat again.
Oh, I would either stress eat or not eat at all. I would talk to people. The most common way to cope with things, I would journal. Yeah, I tend to only journal like the bad stuff, so my diary is a really dark place. Listen to music or turn to something that I can trust in, like my faith or people of faith that I can trust in. I try to steer away from like negative mediums. Though they may be like cathartic, it may not really help with your mood. So yeah, cheery things.
First of all, is to always understand, I think, that there is an option of seeking professional help. I had therapists in the form of friends. They knew how to like get me to come out of the hole that I was in, right? So that's something that really helped to lift me out of the sort of like depressive phase that I was going. There are a lot of things you can do for yourself as well. I learned to channel my energy somewhere else. So a lot of these emotional things that are going on in your head, right, it's all thoughts. For myself, I wrote into songs. The only reason why I wrote songs back then, like I felt I needed to take things out, but I didn't like writing to a journal. I didn't really like writing things into. So I take all of that and then I write it down into word and notes, and then it makes sense to me. And when I listen back to my own music, I suddenly realized, hey, like this is exactly. It's kind of weird, but it sounds like someone understands me, even though that someone is myself.
Sometimes I just like shrug it off, but apparently that doesn't work because it will keep coming to you. So sometimes I just let it come to me. But when it comes, I always make sure that I will just give myself some time and space. I think that's very important. And I will just give myself a few minutes to consolidate everything. But then when you do that, just remember it's going to be just in that time frame itself. You're not going to feel the same feeling after you feel those anxious emotions. Yeah, sometimes I do that because I realize there's no point bottling it up because it's just going to compound. And another thing I would do is I would literally find ways to distract myself. Yeah, this is when the anxiety isn't that much, you know, it's kind of like it's there, it's lingering, and I want to suppress it. So what I usually do is I will run, or I will just do push-ups and sit-ups.
It's mostly shoving myself with work and distractions. Mostly work, I would say. I think it was at a point I was still starting my YouTube channel lah. So this was after my worst experience. I just like, okay, emotions are getting in my way. So I'm just going to put it in the corner, the recesses of my mind, and not think about it, and just use all that time to actually just be busy doing YouTube or studying. These were just like distractions away from things I was feeling. My feelings are something that I have neglected for quite a long time up to now. That is the negative side of how I coped with my emotions. But I also do have other ways that I cope, especially with things like overwhelm and anxiety. If you're in this state of anxiety and worry and overwhelm, take a step back and try to look at the bigger picture. In a year's time, whatever you're feeling now, the worries that you're feeling now, is going to be very minute in the grand scheme of things. And obviously the last one is actually just asking for help. I realized that there's so much value in just asking people for help and opening up. And I would say that it's only recently, because of a particular someone, that my emotional walls sort of went down. And I started to realize that you aren't as slowly as you think you are. And there are actually a lot of people that you're able to sort of rely on if you just take the chance to be vulnerable and open up to them. And it took me a long time to see that until, someone helped me break down my walls. You want to acknowledge that you might have some anxiety, and don't actually be afraid of acknowledging it. You know, don't think that you're not worthy of like feeling worry because like it seems like everyone else is having it fine. You should remind yourself that anxiety it's just a feeling, and whatever worrisome thoughts that you might have after this anxiety, it's mostly going to be illogical, and there's really a lot of value in just opening up to people. You know, you can journal things down if you're not that comfortable, because at least you have an outlet for it. Find your outlet, I would say. You know, put your words down somewhere, listen to some music, get an outlet for whatever you're thinking. In a way, it sort of kind of leaves your mind. It kind of clears up whatever thoughts that you might have. Yeah, don't be afraid to be vulnerable, I would say, and find an outlet.
I think for some people, when you come into university, suddenly you are responsible for a number of things. All of these things just kind of come together and you realize that it's a lot on my table. And it is a lot on your table. But if you properly slice up everything into manageable portions, it's actually possible to take it slow, take it step by step. There are a lot of things that are coming to you onto your plate at once, but eventually you will find a way to, like make everything seem less of a hurdle than it is. The good thing about school is that you're going to make friends. You're going to make a lot of good friends in here. These people are not just your classmates. They're not just people whom you can ask questions to when you don't know how to solve a certain problem. Also people that you can talk to if you want to share about things that you want to share about. Also people that you can listen to if they have things that you want to share about. And don't miss out the social part of it. It's also important for your own well-being. Make sure you're in control of your life. That's the most important thing. And if you ever lose control, take a break, come back again in the near future, and you'll find yourself having better hands to do the job of taking care of yourself.
I will go back to my previous response about not wasting your time on people who don't matter, or people who judge you, I suppose. People are getting better at that. People are getting better at dealing with other people's emotions. So yeah, they're not going to run away because you tell them about your bad day and you let them into a different side of you that they may not have seen. Yeah, it really helps to share those emotions with other people and those experiences, because more often than not, they've probably gone through the same things, and there's a bit of solace that you can find in people who have shared. They're probably happy now, or even if they're not, they will be, because there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And yeah, everyone's on their own paths towards, that light. So hopefully you get there soon too.
Understand and rationalize why you're feeling this way. Whenever the anxiety comes, you will know it. And it is bad for you to just shrug it off. Just look into the anxiety and say, hey, it's that moment again. Okay, what you do with the anxiety is very important. And honestly, getting educated and being woke about how it triggers you will help you a lot in your journey of understanding anxiety. And also, just know that what you see on the social media and everything. Everybody has anxiety. It's just different for everybody.
Honestly, I feel like there's probably a lot of students who are in the same position as me, and don't be afraid to talk to your friends. Because I was afraid to talk to my friends, and even though now I'm still afraid, but at least it's very helpful to have maybe like 1 to 2% who you can really trust. It's a good thing, like, if you have someone like that. But if you don't, then also like don't be scared to like ask for help. Just book it first, and then like, yeah, so just book it, and then like you will just feel like 3 months or like 1 month will just pass by in an instant, and you can be like one step closer to feeling better. Yeah.
One thing you guys should realize is that anxiety is just a feeling. It's triggered by a fight or flight response to supposed danger. You need to realize that we aren't actually in any danger of any sort, and it's mostly because of a combination of all the worrying we have done over these matters. And yeah, if you guys ever feel that you're overwhelmed or there's too much on your plate right now, it would do you a world of good to just reach out for help when you need it. It's something I also learned throughout the course of this year. Just always remember that you guys are not alone. And yeah, that's it for the video. Do leave a like, sub if you loved it, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.